Leo, let's get one thing clear right now: you are worthy. And the kind of love that's coming your way isn't just any love. It's powerful. It's wealthy. It's aligned. This person isn't walking into your life to fix you, they're showing up because you've already done the work. That's why you're here. That's why this message found you. I've been in this field for years, studying the stars, watching people heal, fall apart, rebuild, and if there's one thing I know for sure, it's this: timing isn't random. You didn't stumble on this video because the algorithm got lucky. You're here because your soul was ready to hear something it already knew. Deep down. And if that truth makes you pause, that's a good thing. Sit with it. This is not just another love reading filled with fluff and wishful thinking. This is a checkpoint. A wake-up call. A confirmation. That the love you've been praying for, the one that can meet your depth, your loyalty, your intensity, is on its way to you. And they're not coming empty-handed. They carry purpose. They carry vision. They carry abundance. And they're looking for their equal, not a project, not a placeholder, not someone to complete them, but someone who's already complete on their own. That's why your journey had to be so personal. That's why it took longer than you wanted. That's why you had to say no to so many people who almost fit but didn't. So if your heart has grown tired from the waiting, I get it. If you've doubted whether the kind of connection you dream of even exists, I've been there. But I'm telling you now, as someone who's watched this unfold for hundreds of souls just like you, something is shifting. Right now, in this exact season, Leo is experiencing a pull cosmically, emotionally, spiritually to return to center. The noise is fading. The distractions are clearing. And what's left is a clear signal from the universe: get ready. Your soulmate isn't just approaching. They've already been rerouted, redirected, and released, and they're heading straight to you. Not because you begged for it, but because you prepared for it. Because you grew. You healed. You held the line when no one else clapped for you. Because you stopped settling. This message isn't just here to entertain you. It's here to invite you to anchor that energy, not just with belief, but with intention. So before we go any further, I want you to do something simple but powerful. Go down to the comments and write this one line: I'm ready to receive the love I've been preparing for. That's it. Write it like a declaration, not a hope, not a maybe, but a truth. A decision. And if you're still watching, thank you. Let me take a moment to say how grateful I am for your presence here, truly. Every comment you leave, every time you hit like or subscribe to this space we're building here at Eternal Mindfulness. It matters. It's how we grow. It's how we make room for more light to reach those who need it. Your support fuels this mission. And Leo, I say this not as a prediction but as a knowing: you will want to stay with me until the end of today's message. Because what the universe is about to reveal is nothing short of miraculous. Let's go deeper. Leo, what if I told you the loneliness you've been carrying wasn't an accident, or worse, a punishment, but rather a sacred appointment with your own becoming? Not the version of you the world demanded, but the one that only silence, stillness, and separation could reveal. When the sun, your ruling light, transits the 12th house, the house of surrender, introspection, and spiritual isolation, it doesn't dim you out of cruelty. It pulls you inward. Not to erase you, but to refine you. to strip away the noise so the deeper notes of your soul can rise. This phase, what we often call loneliness, wasn't empty. It was a greenhouse. And even though it looked quiet on the surface, something was being cultivated below: resilience, clarity, discernment, self-trust. These aren't qualities that bloom in crowds. They grow in private. They grow in the soil of time and shadow, away from applause and validation. You weren't waiting for your life to begin, you were already in it. But this was the chapter written in invisible ink, only revealed once the light within you had grown bright enough to read it. And you did grow. Even if you couldn't see it. Even if it didn't feel like progress. You sat in rooms where no one understood you and still refused to shrink. You loved people who couldn't return it and still didn't close your heart. You cried, and healed, and stayed honest about the ache, and somehow, through all of that, you found a deeper rhythm. One that didn't need to be chased. One that didn't collapse under silence. That's the real power you carry now. The Four of Swords speaks to this quiet battlefield, the one where nothing looks like it's happening, but everything is. The hermit walks alone, not because he is lost, but because he has chosen to see without distraction. And Temperance? She's the alchemist of patience, transmuting restlessness into wisdom. These cards don't show the glamour of the spotlight you're used to, Leo. But they show the part of your story that required the most courage, the part where you stayed, when it would have been easier to run. Some people exited your life during this chapter. And maybe you thought that was your fault. Maybe you wondered, if I were more lovable, more exciting, more easy. But what if I told you those departures were divine acts of protection? Not every energy deserves access to yours. Not every hand is meant to hold the crown with you. Some connections were never meant to last, they were simply messengers, here to teach you what to accept, what to reject, and what to walk away from with grace. There's a quiet truth in the teachings of detachment, that the things we cling to often cloud the treasures meant for us. When you stop chasing, stop begging, stop contorting yourself into someone else's version of lovable, you create a space. A sacred vacancy. And only what is aligned can step in. In the stillness, you are being calibrated to a higher frequency. One that only a very particular soul can meet. So no, you weren't left behind. You were being preserved. Like a rare, priceless gem set aside until the setting could match its brilliance. That's what this time was for. Not to break you, but to prepare you. You didn't miss the train. You were never meant to take the early one. Your ride has always been scheduled to arrive on divine time. And now, as your soul stirs again and the light begins to shift, I want you to remember that none of this was wasted. Every quiet moment. Every unanswered prayer. Every friend who left. Every season of not knowing what's next. It all had purpose. You were never forgotten. You were simply being stored for something greater, something fuller, something that will not ask you to become less in order to be loved. That time is coming. And when it does, you'll recognize it. Because you'll be ready, not because they complete you, but because you've already come home to yourself. There's something deeply personal about the way you start feeling pulled toward a future that hasn't quite shown up yet, but somehow, you know it's coming. If you've been noticing subtle shifts lately, Leo, you're not imagining things. Maybe it's the calm that settles over you in the middle of a storm. Or the quiet confidence you didn't used to have. Or maybe it's just a sense that something or someone is finally moving toward you. That feeling? That's real. It's the signal. When you've spent enough time learning how to be whole on your own, the next chapter often arrives not as a reward, but as a reflection. This isn't about finally being good enough for love. It's about being energetically aligned with someone whose presence doesn't ask you to shrink or perform. Someone whose strength doesn't intimidate you, but awakens the same strength in you. That's what's on its way now. This person, this counterpart, isn't just here to love you. They're here to build with you. To walk beside you, not in front or behind. Their soul doesn't complete yours. It harmonizes with it. You won't need to explain your depth to them. You won't need to hide your fire. They'll already know it, because they've had to hold the same kind of heat in their own life. In energy work, we often say, like attracts like, not in the superficial sense, but in vibration. And the vibration you're holding now, after all the solitude, the clarity, the lessons, is exactly the kind that draws in someone grounded, aware, and generous in spirit. In numerology, 1111 is often the first sign that union energy is activating. It's not just a wish number, it's a gateway. A message that both souls are being awakened and rerouted toward one another. It's divine timing coded in numbers. When you start seeing that sequence, especially when you're not thinking about love at all, it's a quiet confirmation. They're getting closer. You're getting closer. The space between you is collapsing. Astrologically, Venus forming a harmonious trine to Jupiter is another major confirmation. These two planets together speak of abundance and beauty, but also of worthiness and alignment. When this energy lights up your chart, especially in houses tied to identity, relationships, or long-term goals, it's not about fantasy. It's about a relationship that's both fulfilling and functional. A connection where joy and purpose are woven into the same thread. And if you're wondering what kind of person this is, it's not someone perfect. It's someone powerful. Not in the loud, showy sense, but in the way their presence anchors a room. They walk like they've rebuilt themselves. They speak with the quiet assurance of someone who doesn't need to prove anything. The Emperor. The King of Pentacles. These archetypes from the tarot don't chase, and they don't control. They protect. They create. They lead with stability. And most importantly, they recognize what's real. You'll know them not by the sparks, but by the stillness. There won't be anxiety, performance, or games. There will be calm. Familiarity. That deep exhale you didn't know you'd been holding. They won't rush you, but something in their presence will make you feel like you've been waiting for them your whole life. That's because you have. And just like the moon pulls the tide without a single word, the field between you and them is already working. There's no need to push or prove. You are already calling each other in. So if you feel it, if you've sensed a shift, a presence, a soft but powerful momentum building around you, trust that. Trust what's rising. This isn't about chasing anyone. This is about recognizing that someone is already walking toward you. Because they are. Sometimes the past has a way of whispering when your future is almost ready to speak. It's not always loud. Sometimes it slips in through a memory you didn't invite, a message from someone you haven't heard from in years, or a familiar craving for something you already outgrew. When you're on the edge of a new chapter, the old one tends to get restless. It wants your attention, not because it belongs where you're going, but because it senses it's being left behind. Leo, this isn't a punishment. It's not a coincidence, either. It's the final layer of the lesson revealing itself, one last check to see if you're still available for what once hurt you, confused you, or made you small. The truth is, energy doesn't need a calendar. It just responds to openness. And if even a part of you is still carrying a door half open to the past, don't be surprised if the past tries to walk through it again. You might notice this in patterns, not just people. Maybe it's the same kind of text from someone who never chose you fully. Maybe it's an old friend who shows up right when you've finally found peace. Or maybe it's an inner voice convincing you to play it safe, to go back to what's known, even if it no longer fits. This is where the real work happens, not in battling others, but in choosing yourself with such clarity that no echo from the past can shake it. In astrology, this kind of moment often aligns with challenging aspects between Saturn and personal planets, an invitation to draw the line between memory and mastery. And in the tarot, we see this vividly with the devil reversed and the world upright. The devil, when turned upside down, isn't about evil, it's about liberation. It's the release of attachments that once defined us, but no longer serve the soul we've become. The world then steps in, not just to celebrate closure, but to initiate elevation. It's the shift from cycle to spiral, from loop to launch. One of the most powerful acts of healing in this phase is quiet and internal. You don't need to make a scene or declare anything to others. You only need to choose, clearly and gently, to stop leaking your light into timelines that can no longer contain your truth. Sometimes this looks like writing a letter to a version of you that tolerated too much, forgiving them, and then burning that page as an act of freedom. Other times it looks like 7 days of stillness, giving your nervous system permission to stop chasing what never chose you. And here's where subtlety becomes sacred. That instinct to reply out of curiosity, nostalgia, or guilt, it's not weakness. It's the muscle memory of someone who used to believe love had to be earned. But now you know better. Now you know that anything real doesn't require pain as proof. You've done the work. You've sat through the silence. You've grown into a version of yourself that finally sees red flags as warnings, not invitations. So when the past calls, whether through a person, a thought, or a pattern, you don't owe it a conversation. You owe yourself the peace that came from walking away. Not with resentment, not with drama, but with the quiet clarity of someone who knows their worth. You can still love who you were, and refuse to go back to them. Try saying this to yourself each morning for the next week: I release what no longer resonates with the light I carry. Say it like you mean it. Let your body believe it. Because every time you choose not to respond to what you've already outgrown, you send a signal to the universe: I'm ready for what's next. And make no mistake, what's next is watching closely, waiting to step in the moment you stop looking back. When you're finally ready to receive something extraordinary, the work is no longer about going out to find it, it's about becoming the version of yourself that naturally draws it in. Leo, this is that time. And if you've made it through the heaviness of the past and the ghosts that tried to call you back, what you're stepping into now is sacred ground. But here's the truth: the one who is meant for you, the powerful and grounded partner you've been preparing for, won't arrive because you search harder. They'll find you because you've become unmistakable. Their soul is wired to recognize your frequency, but only when you're broadcasting it clearly. It starts with the quiet things. The seemingly small choices you make every day that shape how you hold yourself in the world. I'm not talking about pretending or performing. I'm talking about alignment. About embodying the truth that you are already worthy, already magnetic, already enough. This version of you doesn't chase. This version lives as if the love you want is already on its way, and because of that, everything shifts. Let's break that down. Think about energy like radio waves. If you're still tuned to scarcity, self-doubt, or hesitation, the right person can't quite lock in. But when you begin to carry yourself like someone who trusts what's coming, your whole field changes. And trust me, that's not just a vibe, it's a beacon. So how do you tune in? Not by forcing or faking, but by creating an environment that reflects who you've become. Start with hydration. It sounds basic, but water holds memory. When you bless your water or drink it with intention, you're literally resetting the flow within you. Speak kind words over it. Say a verse, a mantra, or a line that reminds you who you are. Do it in the morning, before your thoughts start pulling you in all directions. Next, look at how you dress. Not for others, but for how it makes you feel. Colors like gold and red aren't just flattering, they activate confidence and vitality, especially for Leo energy. Dress in a way that reminds you you're royal. Not flashy, but sovereign. Not trendy, but true to your essence. When your outer appearance aligns with your inner knowing, it sends a clear signal: I'm not waiting, I'm ready. Then, turn inward to your space. Your room, your home, your altar if you have one. The energy of clutter is the energy of indecision. You don't have to go full minimalist, but create order where you sleep, where you dream, where you rest. Especially your bedroom. Make it a space where someone you love could walk in and feel peace, not chaos. Even if you're not sharing it yet, make space for them anyway. That's an act of faith. That's embodiment. And don't forget to write. Not just goals or affirmations, but details. Write a letter to your future partner, not as if you're begging the universe, but as if they're already on the way and just need directions to find you. What do they feel like? What kind of presence do they bring into a room? What do you want to build together? The clearer your vision, the clearer your signal. Lastly, meditation isn't about becoming a monk or zoning out for hours. It's about quieting the noise long enough to hear your own frequency. When you sit still, breathe deeply, and declare, I am a soul worthy of love and respect, you're not just affirming. You're recalibrating your entire field. Do this daily. Even if it's 5 minutes. Even if your mind wanders. The repetition will anchor you. And when in doubt, remember this number, 888. In numerology, it's the number of wealth, power, and spiritual completion. It's the moment when the journey you've been walking starts to show fruit. When you live like that number is already yours, the person meant for you won't need directions, they'll just feel drawn. Because your energy, your presence, your readiness will be impossible to miss. Wealth, when it shows up in its highest form, isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It's not flashy, not performative, and definitely not about impressing people who don't even know your story. True wealth, the kind that comes from alignment and purpose, feels like quiet power. And Leo, that's exactly what this next phase is inviting you to recognize. The partner who's coming toward you doesn't carry riches just to flaunt them, they carry them to build something bigger with you. Their wealth isn't the destination. It's the fuel. What you're stepping into isn't just romance. It's co-creation. You hold the blueprint. Your soul has been working for years, maybe lifetimes, on a vision that's needed the right kind of support to finally take form. And this person? They're not just here to witness your dreams. They're here to invest in them. To activate them. They bring the resources, the access, the networks, but you bring the spark. The knowing. The map. Think of it this way: two wings don't fly in competition. They lift together. One side provides stability, the other direction. Without either, the flight doesn't happen. That's what this union is designed to be. Not one carrying the other, but both rising together, offering what the other can't provide alone. And from that collaboration, something bigger than the two of you will begin to take shape. For some of you, that might look like creating a space for emotional healing, maybe a physical center, or maybe just an online platform where people can come to feel safe in their own humanity. For others, it may show up as philanthropy, working directly with underserved communities, or pouring into programs that give people dignity again. And for some of you, it'll be storytelling, launching a media project that doesn't numb people, but wakes them up. Whatever it is, it will be real. Rooted. Tangible. But here's where the deeper work begins. To step into this chapter fully, you'll need to examine your relationship with money, not just practically, but energetically. Most of us were taught to fear wealth, judge it, or believe we're not spiritual enough to hold it. You may carry hidden stories like, if I have too much, others will suffer, or money will change me, or I'm not good with finances, so I don't deserve them. These beliefs aren't truths. They're inherited limitations. And they've quietly shaped your ceiling until now. You can change that. One simple practice is to rewrite those beliefs literally. Take a pen and list the top 3 ideas you've carried about money that no longer serve you. Then rewrite them as truths that empower you. For example, turn "I'm bad with money" into "I'm learning to be a wise and conscious steward of all I receive." This isn't about pretending. It's about replacing old programming with present intention. In the tarot, this energy is beautifully captured by the 10 of Pentacles, a symbol of legacy, not just lifestyle. It's followed by the 6 of Wands, which speaks to public recognition earned through authentic contribution. And then there's Justice, the reminder that what you receive must also be shared, balanced, and rooted in integrity. These 3 cards together point to a future where abundance is not the reward, but the result of walking in alignment with your values. And Leo, you're ready for that. You've done the inner clearing. You've walked away from what dulled your light. Now, as this partner steps forward, not just with love, but with resources, don't shrink. Don't question whether you're worthy. You are. This wealth isn't coming to decorate your life. It's coming to help you build something that lasts. Something that serves. Something that echoes long after the two of you have met. Leo, if you've made it here to the very end, I want to pause for a moment, not to wrap things up, but to breathe with you. To look you in the eye, soul to soul, and say this plainly: you don't have to go looking for them. The one you've been waiting for has already begun the journey to find you. Not because you chased, not because you proved your worth, but because you finally remembered it. There is a quiet power in letting yourself be found, in releasing the grip of urgency, and choosing instead to trust the timeline that's unfolding beneath your feet. This kind of love, the kind that is strong, wealthy in spirit and in resources, aligned with your frequency, it only finds you when you are no longer reaching outside of yourself for validation. It comes when you start living as if you are already living inside the miracle. And Leo, you are. If you've started seeing repeating numbers 1111, 2222, 888, or hearing the same song in random places, feeling pulled to someone in your dreams you've never met but feel you already know, don't ignore it. These are not strange coincidences. They are whispers from your higher path, soft confirmations that your energy is being seen, mirrored, and responded to. Everything in the universe is alive and listening, including the love that's trying to meet you halfway. So ask yourself, what does it mean to truly live like someone who is ready? What would shift if you stopped waiting and started embodying? If you believed, just for today, that it's not about doing more but about being aligned with who you already are? You're not here by accident. You didn't watch this because you were bored. You're here because something in you is remembering. A knowing that's been quiet for too long is waking up. And now, the question becomes, will you honor it? Take a moment now to anchor your intention. Type it. Declare it. Let the world feel your readiness. I invite you to comment below. I have opened the gate of my soulmate person will recognize me. Say it as a promise to yourself. Say it as an energetic flag to the universe. And if this message stirred something in you, even just a small flicker, please like this video and subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness. Your presence here, your support, your words, they matter. They carry energy. They help us grow this sacred space where souls like yours come home to themselves. Thank you, from the deepest part of my heart, for being here. For showing up. For allowing this message to speak into your journey. And Leo, remember this, you are not just a light in the dark. You are a lighthouse. And somewhere out there, a magnificent ship is navigating by the frequency of your glow. Keep shining, not louder, not harder, just more honestly. Because your love story isn't arriving. It's aligning.